Today on Voice of the Valleys, activist judges seem to be continuing to do what activist judges do best, and that is throwing people in prison for social media posts that are deemed offensive or to be inciting racial hatred, and then letting child go free due to a mythical prison overcrowding crisis. We're going to go over all of that. We're also going to go over the case of the foreign being sent down recently. A far-left alleged journalist has been sent down or arrested in Australia for being the head of a massive satanic ring. All that and more today on Voice of the Valleys. Why, hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Voice of the Valleys yet again with your host, friendly neighborhood far-right thug, always typical, unless he's not, this time repping the Swole Santa. The Swole Santa this time. If only I resembled, right? Kind of looks like a cross between that, like, elderly, Dragon Ball Z character, the master guy or whatever, except he has Goku's body. Mr. George Cresswell, how are we doing? Hope we're all doing well. Hope we're having a fantastic morning, afternoon, evening, night, wherever we are. Get straight into today. Obviously, first things first, thank you to everybody who likes, shares, subscribes, all of that stuff. Had a good few subscribes come in recently. A lot of good responses on my Ballymana clip, or my Ballymena clip, which I put up recently. Thank you to everybody who's commented, that's added your responses. Really, really appreciate them. Clarified certain details and all of those things. It's been a lot of positive discourse in the comments, evidenced by one stream, which you can go over and find the clip on my channel. It's the most recent clip I uploaded, I believe, aside from the shorts, where you now see that people are realizing, people who seem to be based in like Ireland or Northern Ireland, that unionists and nationalists have a common cause, right? And people are saying, who would have thought of it? Who would have seen this 20 years ago? Truly remarkable times that we live in, but just goes to show the threat, magnitude of threat that we face, not only from outside, but from inside as well. If you have anything you'd like to reach out to the show with, things you'd like to blow the whistle on or anything like that, make sure you use the email that'll be linked down below. That is votv.tips@proton.me. That is votv.tips@proton.me, all lowercase. You'll be able to reach out with anything you want me to bring to light, any stories you want to blow the whistle on something. I've had many whistleblowers on the show, not people that have reported things directly to me very often, but people who've been outspoken whistleblowers. I've sat down with Justine Winter, I've sat down with Lisa Peregrine, I've sat down with Victoria Rickson, all of these people, right, that are blowing the whistle on certain things. I've had people reach out to me with information as well. If you want to reach out to me with those things, that would be the place to do it. Obviously, make sure you're following me on Rumble for completely uncensored content. And, if the sword of Damocles was ever to fall on my head, that would be where, you probably get the best viewing experience. Obviously, if you're listening on Spotify or on Amazon Music and all of those things, I greatly appreciate you as well. Getting straight into today, ladies and gentlemen, one thing that's been making the rounds recently with regards to the news waves. Been so many things going on. I'm going to try and get this done as quick as possible if I can. Whilst obviously I've got somebody coming over later, so I need to get this all sorted. The biggest story that's been making the rounds at the moment, really, at least with regards to being in the UK and Wales, is the case of David Morgan. David Morgan is a young man, 24 years old, who was recently sentenced to 20 months in prison for offensive social media posts. Now, you may have seen this, been reported in Wales Online. This has been reported even as far as what seem to be like Australian outlets like The Noticer. We're going to look at two different reports on it, because I find this one thing in this particular report from Wales Online that I find disgusting, and it only seems to be with one side, what's deemed like politically correct, or anybody that's going down on hate charges, whether it's inciting racial hatred, whether it's Islamophobic, whether it's anti-Semitism, whatever all these things are. The one thing that I hate so much, particularly when it is a native British person, right? They've done this with the Southport riots, which I covered at the time when I covered that with the reporting on those, right? The guy that they arrested as soon as he came off a plane or whatever, they not only put his name out there, but they put his address out there. And they've done the same thing, Wales Online done the same thing with David Morgan. And by extension, the thing that makes me so repulsed by this, when the big news outlets do this, they put a target on the family's back and they put a target on the community's back, right? The biggest thing is we had an incident before in the Welsh Valleys where there was an alleged incident of racial hatred, right? And when the school, that was the local school in the area, was put on blast, right? We had people commenting from all over the place saying they were going to come down, they were going to wreck the community, they were going to start essentially, rioting in our local community over an incident that was completely fabricated, by the way. It was all based on a lie, right? And the school had to go into lockdown. I believe people in the community was threatened. Obviously, the community was threatened. People were going to come down with weapons, right? So all over the place due to this alleged racial hatred incident that never was. right? So when these communities get put on blast, or when David gets taken into custody, for example, and they put his street address, and I believe they did put his street address, or they at least put the place where he's from. Yeah, I'm not actually going to say it, but you can go down into the into the articles, into the references down below. Right, and you can read it. It says Morgan of certain place in certain place, right, and literally names his street. Now, anybody that's got psychopathic intentions, as we've seen before, now there's a target on his family's back. Now there's a target on anybody who lives in that community's back, unfairly. It's absolutely disgusting. But what's actually happened? So, David Morgan, young 24-year-old man, who I come across his X page a little while ago. I followed him not too long afterwards. I initially thought it was a fake account. I initially thought it wasn't real. I put one comment under there because it seemed to be like when X first sort of got bought out and then obviously restored free speech and all of these things. And you saw these accounts coming up, especially like young men like David Morgan, who used the hashtag stay free on his X page. It gave me like a glimmer of hope. And when I speak to like some young people and I see that they're awake, at least with regards to what's going on with, especially with regards to government tyranny and all of these things that we see on our own streets, right? Obviously then very impressionable young men, they end up getting led down certain rabbit holes so they can be preyed on very, very easily. It's very difficult to stay centered. And I went over onto his X page. There's a lot of things on there that I look at and go, oh, okay, that's a bit edgy to say the least, right? But at the end of the day, they're memes. As far as I know, he wasn't actually doing anything, never caused any harm to anyone other than the nebulous emotional damage, right? Emotional damage that we're told that you can, imprison people for nowadays if somebody feels threatened or feels as though they've been harmed, right? We're a feelings-based justice system as we get people locked up on social media posts, but then you let child go free. So Wales Online reported that 24-year-old white supremacist with a big social media following, he had about 124,000 followers on X when he was arrested, has been jailed for 20 months over a torrent of racial hatred. The X platform, which is where he quote-unquote spread his bile, has allowed the post to remain online for well over a year. These posts, by the way, did not. I think some of them might have, some of the things he posted violated like the hateful conduct policy. So there was just one or two, as far as I could tell. But none of the posts have been removed for quote-unquote hateful conduct or violating the X terms of service, right? So this now being used as another arm against X, which obviously the government wants to use every single tool possible to stifle X best as possible, because obviously it is the number one free speech platform. It is the number one thing that allows Brits in this social surveillance state to see exactly how things are going on for the most part. Even when you're using a VPN, you don't still get to even see some of the stuff on there now. But again, it's the best place still. You can't trust the mainstream media, obviously. And again, X found no policy violation. And you did have a good couple of things on there that, again, I would heavily disagree with. But, hey, it's memes at the end of the day. It's memes and it's, quote-unquote, offensive images and offensive posts online, right? Apparently he had stuff on there depicting glorifying Nazi gas chambers, depicting black people as... Right? He apparently started a new second account called The New Right Rising, which had about 5,800 followers at the time. His posts have reached millions of people and attracting obviously many, many tens of thousands of likes, right? He pleaded guilty to publishing 9 posts with the intent to quote-unquote stir up racial hatred. Obviously, it doesn't say that in the article. It doesn't say quote-unquote in the article, but I always, we're judging the subjectivity of things now, and that was used in the case against Sam Mellier when he was just making the stickers. They said if you feel, i.e. the jury, which obviously they're trying to do away with now anyway, so people like, what was her name, Tracey Lloyd-Clarke, I believe is the judge in this case. Let me just see if I can find her name. Let me just make sure. Tracey Lloyd-Clarke, I believe it is, because she's going to be the star of today's show. Tracey Lloyd-Clarke was the one that sentenced him, right? Was the one that sentenced him in the end. Judges like that will now be able, or will soon be able to completely and utterly rule with an iron fist over cases less than 3 years. And obviously it's been put out to be in our benefit. The LBC guys have been doing the propaganda rounds trying to say that abolishing the juries is going to be a good thing. All of the mainstream media outlets abolishing the juries is going to be a good thing, right? Makes you think, why do we have a backlog of these people why do we have a backlog of these cases in the first place? Maybe there's 2 people here to begin with, so that our courts can't get through in the system, which would have been perfectly fine before. Wonder what the solution to that might be. But even an MP had apparently complained about what he was posting. Court also heard that Morgan may have monetized his account, allowing it to profit from racist posts that got high number of views. And that, I will say, does seem to be a massive problem, particularly with X. I've seen a lot of big creators complaining about X's monetization, right, which could obviously have big complaints about. And obviously there's no amount of, people that seem to have been bought at the moment with regards to them going out to Qatar and trying to show off how good Qatar is, quite obviously getting either some kind of payment or whatever on the back end. Obviously, it's speculation. I don't have any necessary proof of that. But again, so many creators, including even American Congress people, I believe it was, or American senators, were going out to champion Qatar's praises, right? Very, very suspicious, to say the least. And obviously, that's fine. People say about the same thing about Israel, and people going out to Israel and doing the same thing, right? Perfectly fine. I'm against them both. I'm against them both, right? I like a position on this where you look at any kind of foreign influence, right? You've got lobby groups like AIPAC, right, which buy American politicians and all of these things, but then you seem to have a massive Qatar lobbying force which have bought up over half of London. Right. So again, we have problems with interference coming from all manner of different places. Chinese interference as well seems to be, with Keir Starmer getting caught in a bit of a twist with some of the things he's been saying recently, but that'll be coming up later on in the show. So, apparently he advanced conspiracy theories that Jews are responsible for the global economic stability in New York's 9/11 terrorism attack. We'll say there's been that's the thing with lies. This all comes back to lies from the establishment. Ultimately, if they had told the truth from the very beginning, right? And Tucker Carlson, say what you want about him for some of the avenues that he's going down at the moment. Don't agree with them all, glorifying Russia, like the train stations, about the fact they built at the height of communism, how many people literally died to build those train stations, right? So you do a lot of, whether wittingly or unwitting propaganda in that regard. But there does seem to be some evidence that Israeli authorities and Israeli government, right? I think you could say, talking about foreign governments distinct from the people within those nations, right? Many people now would say, and this is something that I've increasingly been thinking about, that you had, Jewish citizens that were not only victims of October the 7th due to what Hamas did, right, due to the atrocities that were committed at the Nova Music Festival, but seems as though there is some evidence to indicate that the government would have known about it and let it happen as impotence to go into Gaza and declare their war, right? So they were betrayed. You could say they were betrayed, and then they had the Hamas atrocities happen. Right, there does seem to be some evidence for that, just like there does seem to be some evidence that the Israeli authorities and numerous other authorities, including the American ones, obviously, right, knew what was going to happen with 9/11 beforehand. At the very least, there were so many opportunities to stop it. There was infighting between the agencies. Edward Snowden on Joe Rogan podcast said, it was people wanted to take credit. People wanted to get the ultimate credit. In the end, wanted to be the one that stopped it, right? And ultimately, then it cost over 3,000 American citizens, just regular American citizens, their lives, and it's disgusting. He also blamed black people for rising crime rates and claimed that white people are being eradicated, right? I think that last one, especially white people being eradicated, there is an absolute concerted effort. There is an absolute concerted effort to wipe out, white European Western populations. There is absolutely a replacement effort going on and an ethnic cleansing, genocidal ethnic cleansing effort going on. I saw a troubling stat the other day. Apparently 1 in 4 people in Norway or Denmark, I can't remember which one it was. It's one of the two. Norway or Denmark at the moment is immigrant born. And you got to think about it now. Their population is declining. The immigrant population is going to rise and rise and rise. We could be seeing minoritization of native Danes, right, in their home countries, the only countries that they have to call home, within a generation. And that's been done by design. That has been done by design. And again, a lot of people, there's a difference, for example, between using memes and using memes or using all of these different things, speaking in a bombastic way about things like black crime rates, but to say that per capita, for example, that these minorities, such as black people, are not overrepresented in certain crimes, just outright not true. Because they are. That's just reality. And we've discussed that previous. Go check out some of the previous episodes where we've talked about that. Obviously, you might be able to find some good stuff in the chapters down below. on some of those episodes, because I don't know exactly where I talk about them. I talk about them where it's relevant to certain stories, what's coming up and stuff like that. So check out the chapters as well. If you're not watching the live premiere and you're watching this back later on, use the chapters as well. If there's particular sections you want to skip to, right? Because I know sometimes these episodes can go like 2 hours long. Use those time codes down the bottom to skip to the relevant sections that you want, to make sure you don't miss out on things that might be really important that come up later on in the show. But a lot of the things, people are being criminalized for truth. People are being criminalized for truth, and it's just the government doesn't like it. The government doesn't like it because they don't want people talking about it. The 9 posts landed him in Cardiff Crown Court. Crown Court, mind you, these are deemed serious enough to go to Crown Court, right? When you have certain sexual crimes and stuff like that are dealt with at the magistrate level. This is tell me you're living in a tyranny without telling me you're living in a tyranny, that social media posts will go to the Crown Court, but then you resolve certain sexual crimes and other things like that at the magistrate level. They were posted in September and October last year. They included a hazmat-suited figure with a Nazi armband spraying gas towards a caricature of a Jewish man, and one of a black man being visited in prison by a child portrayed as a baby. Obviously, yes, very offensive, very, very offensive. But you have to be able to be offensive in order to be able to not only to be able to think freely and be free, right? Freedom of speech. To have freedom of speech, you have to have freedom to be offensive, right? The difference is, right? I still don't think he should be in prison for sharing memes and stuff like this. Social ostracization, sure, if you want to go down that route, think it's morally repugnant and all of these things, right? What matters ultimately is the truth. What matters ultimately is the truth. As we are seeing now, the compounding effects of seemingly generations and generations of lies, and the best lies being told, because it seems with everything that we've been told, lies have been married to kernels of truth to be able to push these agendas. That's what it seems to me. I don't believe we've been lied to about everything about history. I don't believe we've been lied about everything, but we've been lied to about a lot. We've been lied to about a lot. And those lies are only getting worse. One image showed banknotes moving towards an oven captioned, "Only anti-Semites understand this photo." Others showed a man urinating on a menorah, a Jewish candelabrum, a train track heading into a gas chamber, a Monopoly board implying all black people should be in prison, and Holocaust victim Anne Frank saying, "Gas me outside," in reference to the "Cash me outside" meme. Right? So, the other thing is, where do we draw the line and say, or should the line even be drawn in the first place, that this would be deemed a prisonable offence? So he's now in prison, and this went to counter-terrorism, mind you. This is his mugshot that came with this report and shows him here. Counter-terrorism policing, this went to, mind. Counter-terrorism policing. Yet, as we covered before with the Sun and quote-unquote asylum seeker that was likely involved with terror attacks, Islamic terror attacks in Sri Lanka, has just won an appeal to be housed as an asylum seeker here. Or at least it's going to go to another review. He's won I covered it before. He's won an appeal for it to go to another review, I believe. And like I said before, government here is locking people up for social media posts, their own citizens. They, what was the story? Oh yeah, they imprisoned the guy for quote unquote distributing extreme right-wing music, right? And they sent him down for 2 years, right, in Hereford. And then they're importing literal terrorists, not to mention who the hell is coming through that open border at Dover every single day. That is they're going to be our foreign enforcement arm to keep us in check. Make no mistake about it. This was reported in the Noticer as well. And like I said, the big story, or the big star of this story, really is not even David himself. It's Tracey Lloyd-Clarke. Tracey Lloyd-Clarke described Morgan's words as appallingly prejudiced and disgracefully anti-Semitic and racist. She told him, quote, Your posts caused very serious hurt and increased risk to the safety of Jewish black people in this country. Those posts remain on X to this day. It's not the increasing population of people that want to do, for example, Jews harm, right? You know, the kind of people that say the rocks and the trees will call out saying, there is a Jew behind me, come and kill him, oh slave of Allah. More and more people coming in from those backgrounds and more people of our own being converted to that religion, that's not a problem. That's not a danger to the Jewish community, mind you, even though they literally just had an attack on a synagogue a couple of weeks ago in Manchester. It's David's X posts that are obviously the main concern. It's David's X posts that are the main concern, which could say is bordering on conspiratorial. Conspiratorial. Right? And it's well within his right to hate these groups if he wants to. It's well within his right to hate these groups if he wants to. You might not like it. You might not want to associate with him because of it. Perfectly fine. People don't want to associate me because of my views. Right? And there's a lot that I probably disagree on with David here. Right? A lot that even I look at and go, oh, I'm not too sure about that. You know? But it all depends. Do you support free speech in this manner for your fellow man or not? However, Tracey Lloyd-Clarke, as I mentioned, sentenced him to 20 months in prison because of his quote-unquote extreme and entrenched views. The probation service's assessment of him posing a high risk of serious harm. Judge Lloyd-Clarke said only an immediate jail term could be justified. According to the, as I mentioned, according to the noticer as well, she called his post appallingly prejudiced, disgracefully anti-Semitic and racist, and noted the probation service had made an assessment that he posed a high risk of harm. And as a result then, he's lost his freedom. He's lost his freedom. There's a problem here, though. There's a serious problem here with Judge Lloyd-Clarke in particular. Because here's some stories that we need to go over, very, very important ones, which show that this is all complete nonsense and that this is purely politicized. This is, again, another case of a judge who's an activist. She said here, women at risk, this is from the Telegraph, this is why it's important in a minute, women at risk as sex offenders dodge jail owing to, quote-unquote, overcrowding crisis. The case, I'm going to skip through the article, you can read the full article down below. The case in particular of Reese Newman. Reese Newman, a 33-year-old convicted child, escaped jail because of the overcrowding crisis, quote-unquote, with this judge admitting prison time would have been virtually inevitable otherwise. Who was the judge in that trial for Newman, who was handed a suspended sentence last December for the historic of a girl under 14? This apparently happened in 2005, I believe it was, or 2007. Judge Tracey Lloyd-Clarke. The only reason you have escaped immediate custody today is because of the prison overcrowding crisis. Another one, Chris Luff, 35, avoided a jail sentence after being convicted of underage children on WhatsApp. He was sentenced to 21 months in jail, suspended for 24 months, and that was Judge Mary Loram, said that she had taken the decision because of pressure on the prison system. This is not the only two cases, ladies and gentlemen. According to this post, this is a LinkedIn post from somebody by the name of Jordan Upton, but there's the police report here to go with it to corroborate it. After, again, handing Reese Newman the suspended sentence, and he never saw a day in prison, for child, she sentenced ex-soldier Daffron Williams to 2 years in prison, simply for attending a protest, which was deemed to, quote-unquote, stir up racial hatred. So Daffron Williams, who's an ex-soldier, 41 from Clydach in Tonypandy, posted racist messages on Facebook between July 19th and August 11th this year, and we've seen what classifies as racism. It's often things that are just simply not racist, just things that are truthful, right? On Monday, November 18, he was jailed for 2 years at Cardiff Crown Court. Here is Mr. Daffron, and This is from the police report itself. You can read this down below. It'll be linked down below. It says here, on Monday, November 18th, I'll bring it up a little bit. Sorry, guys, I can't really recenter it. On Monday, November 18th, he was jailed for 2 years at Cardiff Crown Court. We hope this case sends a very clear message to people who think they can hide behind a screen and publish racially prejudiced posts without consequence. It's not a case of preventing freedom of speech a small minority of people claim. That's exactly what it is. Freedom of speech is not freedom to spread racial hatred. Who is the judge of that? We're increasingly seeing that it's more and more activists. But the biggest thing, ladies and gentlemen, the biggest thing that is a massive problem with this is, as I mentioned, it was all based on a lie. And I can't see how Judge Lloyd-Clarke would not know this. This is what broke again a little while ago. We covered this when it came out, that the Labour government, Keir Starmer, has been completely lying about prisons being full. Right? Many prisons are sat under a half empty or less than half capacity. Here is, was it Alex Armstrong with the report on that we covered a little while ago.
And now for a bombshell expose. Is there a deliberate attempt to create chaos and raise crime in Britain by deep state socialist groups like the Fabians? Because you've been told prisons are full. You've been told that we must endure the early release of dangerous and criminals on our streets. You've been told this Labour government had no other choice. Well, well, well. An explosive exclusive by the Daily Express has revealed 3
well, indeed.
overflowing prisons are apparently sitting there half empty with hundreds of cells gathering dust. HMP Cookham Wood, meant for the young tearaways who terrorise our communities, is barely a third full. 83
Barely a third.
in a total of 180 spots. Well, that's almost 100 free spaces just in that prison alone. Then there's HMP Millsike, Britain's shiny new £250 million prison with 1,500 beds. And guess what? It's sitting at under 54% capacity with over 700 empty bunks. What on earth?
Over 700.
David Lammy's design.
Over 700. Now, I just realized, ladies and gentlemen, my webcam settings have gone off. I'm going to quickly readjust the focus. Okay, I hope that's a little bit better. You guys are probably having a really tremendous high-def, high-def view of the bookcase behind me. But you see it, it's all based on a complete lie. It's all based on complete lies, and that's how we know this is completely political. Completely political. Because you see, people, there's been many instances that we've spoken about time and time again ad nauseum. Gang guys never being seen the inside of a jail cell, right? But you had Wayne O'Rourke, who languished in prison. You had Lucy Connolly, who languished in prison. Sadly, she's even being punished with regards to her children now, where because of the conviction of her mother, the children are being now denied school, I believe. And many of the lefties are championing it to try and teach Lucy a lesson and don't realise how close we are, essentially, to North Korea's 3 generations of guilt policy, which is absolutely terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. Got a phone call in a minute, ladies and gentlemen. I need to answer the phone. Apologies about that, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not exactly sure where I left off. But, yeah, biggest thing is you can see is completely political. It's all based on a lie. Makes you think, would it have been different? Would have been different, for example, if it was, or what would Judge Lloyd-Clarke would have done if she was presiding over this case of a far-left homosexual Aboriginal journalist being among 4 men arrested in Sydney over an alleged satanic ring. Here's the moment they were taken into custody, ladies and gentlemen. Here's the moment that the New South Wales Police Force raided them and took these alleged satanic and also engagers that were operating in this ring into custody. Obviously obscuring his identity, obviously. Yeah, you can see here they're obviously talking about something. There's no sound in this part of the video, so I could just bring this up on screen. But yeah, so this moment they raided it, and then they took these 4 gentlemen into custody. And he's walking towards the camera. So, give you the breakdown, ladies and gentlemen. According to the noticer, far-left journalist among 4 arrested over alleged satanic ring. And there were some people out there that were reporting that this was the Nationalist Socialist Network. Seems could not be further from the truth. But you've got here a far-left journalist, it was seen, by the name of Landon Ashton Versace Germanotta Mills, or Germanotta Mills, if you say it, who's 26, arrested, this is the guy, arrested in the inner-city suburb of Waterloo on Thursday with 3 other men, Benjamin Raymond Drysdale, Mark Andrew Sindecki, and Stuart Woods Riches, were arrested at a unit block in Malabar. They alleged the 4 men were part of a Sydney-based network actively involved in possessing, distributing, and facilitating child abuse material involving ritualistic or satanic themes through a website administered internationally. The sex crime squad detective under Strike Force Constantine allege Germanotta Mills, who runs a news site called Underground Media Network, played a leading role in the alleged ring. A former Network 10 intern, Mills describes himself as Wiradjuri, this word here if you're looking on screen, Wiradjuri investigative journalist and regular posts, or posts regular, far-left extremist content on social media, including demands for Australia Day to be abolished, the promotion of Black Lives Matter, which is a racist terrorist organisation, and articles attacking neo-Nazis. He also has multiple posts calling himself gay and celebrating homosexuality and transgenderism. Is he gonna, I suppose we'll see if he sees the inside of a jail cell, right? Suppose we'll see. This is probably tells you all you need to know. Really, this was the guy in question, apparently, in 2019. So what would Judge Lloyd-Clarke say in this instance? Would she blame the prison overcrowding? They said they had thousands of videos exchanged by the international network that were particularly devastating, and that the group alleged use confronting symbols and rituals to torture children. I'm not lying, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not exaggerating when at least I'm reading this to you. To torture children aged from infants to age 12 and animals. This is absolutely horrendous. Obviously, no words whatsoever. But this is obviously a lot more problematic, really, you would think, for people like Judge Lloyd-Clarke here. Because obviously, it's not as politically easy to go with the hate stuff. This guy supported all of the things that is deemed good and moral to support. Black Lives Matter, the anti-racist stuff, the anti-fascist stuff. He supported all of the social justice causes. He would have obviously been very open borders, refugees welcome, abolishing abolishing Australia Day, sorry. All of these very pro-left-wing causes that are deemed good and moral to support, right? The destruction of your own nations and the destruction of your own people, the genocide of your own people. But if you make some edgy memes, right, and post them online, right, but you could argue, obviously, repugnant in their content, right? People have debate over this. There's obviously many people that support it. There's many people that don't. But some things you're allowed to say and you won't get locked up for, and other things that you are. Some memes you can create. You can depict Donald Trump, Nigel Farage, Elon Musk as Nazis and try and justify their murder and celebrate when they die like they did with Charlie Kirk. But you make a meme. You make a meme that's not politically correct, and you get 20 months in prison. Even worse then you'll see here that some judges, it seems, or at least the judiciary, you know, whether it's prosecution or whatever it is, how this works, I'm not exactly 100% sure. So if I'm getting this slightly wrong, as always, leave it down in the comments if you happen to be an American watching this, and you can give me a little bit more info about this if I'm getting this slightly wrong. But you'll see then is that on some of the most heinous crimes, these judges, if it's because it might be deemed racist or insensitive or whatever, they'll be extremely soft, even when it's cases of beheading and, you know, murder and beheading. Just the Democrat stronghold of Dallas, which is in Texas, which as far as I know at least is a very red state, but Dallas is, you know, very, very liberal, it would seem, will not be seeking the death penalty for an illegal alien from Cuba that beheaded a motel manager with a machete in front of his children on September the 10th, with prior arrests for a child and carjacking in California. Just have a listen, ladies and gentlemen. Just have a listen.
They will not seek the death penalty against a man charged with beheading a co-worker in front of that co-worker's family.
So that's the plan, at least for now, from prosecutors to the judge presiding over that capital murder trial. The shocking violence taking place in broad daylight. It happened in September in front of witnesses. There were also cameras. Fox 4 Sean Rabb in our newsroom now with this story. Sean.
Yeah, so no trial date has been set yet, but the undocumented Yordanis Cobos Martinez, a Cuban native, learned today the state will likely not seek the death penalty for the gruesome crime. Shackled and suited out in a tan jail jumper, shadowed by sheriff's deputies, Yordanis Cobos Martinez made his first appearance in a Dallas courtroom. September 10th, Dallas police arrested Cobos Martinez.
You'd think, if you push for the death penalty on anyone, it would be this guy. It would be this guy. That's what you would think.
Ben Nagamalaya.
He's killed somebody and beheaded them in front of that person's family, in front of his children. He never should have been in the country in the first place. So well done, the no human is illegal guys. You directly wanted this. Right? You support this. Previous convictions of a child and carjacking, and yet they're not going to say that this guy, maybe his number should be up. Maybe his number should be up. You know, maybe we should just make an example of this guy. Oh, the horrific excerpts, which I posted a post on YouTube recently, highlighting that some of the Open Justice UK guys had put a bunch of the court transcripts together for a lot of the gang cases. They've got someone there from Rotherham, I believe, at the moment. Completely unredacted, you know, the convicted names and all of those things, right? And the horrendous details of what those girls were put through, right? You know, they won't, but obviously we don't have the death penalty now, but you'd think those would be the kind of people that you would make examples of in a just and actually caring society for your own people. But no, the left in this instance is hyper compassionate towards the absolute worst of the criminals, and that's why they use all of these disgusting labels against people that just want, pardon me, don't even have to be like hardcore ethno-nationalists to support the positions of deport or kill heinous foreign criminals. Right? But the judges, no. You'll never get anywhere. You'll never get anywhere. And who are the people that are villainized then when you have a negative reaction, when a judge is lenient, for example, on your daughter's killer? It's obviously the parents that are the ones then villainized, as is the case in this one, which is the last example I want to go through. This is, I believe this was a case in the Netherlands, and it was a Dutch judge. No surprise, it's another female. It's another female. Again, maternal, nurture baby instinct gone wild, and now they've, decided that the people that they need to nurture are the absolute worst in society, and anybody that says that, maybe it's not a good idea, they're the ones at fault. A man throws a chair at a judge after a verdict. This was back in 2019. He threw a chair at the judge after a driver who killed his daughter and two parents, two other people, got 120 hours of community service as punishment. So this was the case. A driver from Poland was driving in, I don't know how to pronounce it, Meijel, M-E-I-J-E-L, in the Netherlands, when he struck two cyclists and a 2-year-old on May 19th, 2013. Somehow the court ruled that there wasn't any evidence for reckless driving, or at least wasn't enough for reckless driving, despite the fact that he was doing 1.5 times the speed limit. Obviously, they use kilometers per hour, in these areas of the world. He was doing 120 kilometers per hour in an 80 kilometers per hour zone. Which, if I'm not mistaken, that probably means he was doing, what, like 80 or 90 in a 60, pretty much? You know, somewhere around there. The driver was found in a violation of Article 5 of the Dutch Road and Traffic Law and was sentenced to 120 hours of community service, a suspension of his license for 1 year, and 2 years probation afterward. This is triple manslaughter. This is triple manslaughter. You got this father's daughter who was killed, 2-year-old child, and then 2 cyclists, which presumably would be the 2 parents. I'm under the impression that they're all dead. Yeah, killing 3 people. He killed these 3 people. It's a triple manslaughter. And not only did they not rule that it was triple manslaughter, they gave him 120 hours community service. Now, there was so much backlash, they had to issue statements afterwards. You can go and read it on the link down below. It's channel 93.3 news, or channel 93.3. You can find it down below. This was the video, though, and I'm fully with the father on this one. I'm absolutely fully with the father on this one. How this guy did not see the inside of a jail cell at the very least is such a miscarriage of justice. There's no words to describe it. Obviously, the video is in Dutch, I believe, but you'll see the moment when it sort of heats up and the guy gets pulled up against the door. You'll see it when it happens.
Op grond van het voorstaande en gelet op de straffen die doorgaans voor soortgelijke gevallen worden opgelegd, is de rechtbank van oordeel dat aan verdachte een onvoorwaardelijke taakstraf voor de duur van 120 uur, subsidiair 60 dagen hechtenis, dient te worden.
You can hear the people in the background hysteric crying. I don't know whether that's just somebody in the room, a female in the room that panicked because of obviously somebody got violent, right? But how would you react if your daughter was just killed? Your 2-year-old daughter was killed by somebody going 1.5 times the speed limit, and 2 other parents were killed as well. Not only that, the judge then decided that not only was it not triple manslaughter, but he's only going to get 120 hours community service. And then he's going to be suspended for 1 year and probation for 2 years after that. How is that in any way justice? You never want to see things like this. You never want to see things like this. But until we root out the activists at the heart of the judicial system, until we see what judges are not actual judges, they're political activists, you're going to see more of this, and you're going to see it be worse and worse and worse. So people are seeing that the justice system is not in fact a justice system, it's an injustice system. It's politicized, it's 2-tier, and it's going to be a very crucial part, a very destructive part of what's going to destroy our societies. People have no faith in the justice system, that it's actually going to deliver justice and deliver truth and be on the side of the good, right? It's why you have the whole thing where justice is blind, right? We're increasingly seeing now that that statue of justice has its eyes wide open, and it is operating with a very clear political bent that is hyper-compassionate to the absolute worst of society, and those whom it personally deems, due to politicized legislation and a particular political bent, as being war criminals for sharing music and making money off it, for example, as we talked about in the last episode, that they are to be treated exactly as that, as perceived war criminals, and so on. Meanwhile, you'll have child go free. You'll have triple manslaughters go unpunished with jail time. It needs to end. Because it only emboldens criminals. When you see people being let out 40% early or serve less than half their sentence, it's no deterrent. And it's no surprise to them when people end up going back in either the same day or day after, or a week later or whatever, or they go out and they commit another heinous murder or or they prey on another child. It emboldens criminals more and more and more when there's no consequence. So they got no judicial consequence. In many instances, the police just outright won't turn up. So there's no police consequence, no force in that moment. The victims often can't administer any kind of consequence themselves because they've been disarmed and they've been told if they fight back, they'll be the ones that are prosecuted. You've done everything possible to create the most destabilized society possible by encouraging the quote-unquote justice system, and these judges are directly enabling and facilitating the worst criminal behavior. Every single one of them needs to be held to account. And in many instances, we're seeing everybody, I see people calling for it now, and it's rightfully so, we're going to need a Nuremberg trial 2.0 for our own backstabbing traitors. We're going to need a Nuremberg trial 2.0 for everybody that was complicit in the gangs, for everybody that's been complicit in blaming the British people for the terror attacks that have been inflicted upon them. Every remaining Prime Minister that's here, every judge, every civil servant, complicit. Well, if justice is going to be done and respect is going to be restored to Britain and the British people, there's going to be a lot of you hanging from a rope in the future. So if I were you, I'd start praying. So we don't want to see more incidents like this, no matter where they're from, and no matter if it's our own people or other people. Vincent Chan pleaded guilty to a string of abuse charges. This is the guy that's just come down recently. Nursery worker in London amidst filming himself abusing children. 45 from North London. Obviously, he's not actually from North London. It's not his native North London. Admitted his quote-unquote calculated and predatory pattern of abuse in court on Wednesday. He worked as a now closed branch of the Bright Horizons Nursery Group in North London for nearly 7 years before he was caught. He pleaded guilty to 5 counts of assault of a child by penetration and 4 counts of assault of a child by touching. He admitted to 11 counts of making indecent photographs or pseudo-photographs, so maybe assuming, some kind of AI involvement or whatever, of a child, and 6 counts of making indecent photographs or pseudo-photographs of a child. Some of them of taking and then some of them of making. Right. Some of the images were in the worst category of abuse, so we're talking category A. He looked down and answered guilty to each of the counts as they were put to him. This was the moment that he was arrested by Met Police. Oh, hang on, the video doesn't seem to be working. Bear with me 2 seconds, guys. Right, uno momento. Here we go. Here's the moment he was arrested by Met Police.
As well, mate. So basically, you're also further under arrest for digital penetration of a minor. Okay. So same time of arrest, that's 10 to 8. You don't have to say anything. May help me defend if you do not mention when questioned, something which later on in court and to be significant evidence.
Right, just while they read him his rights, I'm a bit confused. Can somebody explain to me digital penetration of a minor? Can someone explain that to me, please? That does not make sense to me. How, I'm not playing devil's advocate here. I'm not trying to say that this is, okay by any means. How do you digitally penetrate a minor? Can somebody leave that down in the comments or in the live chat if you're watching a live premiere of this? I don't understand how you digitally penetrate a minor. It's everything that he just said there. Obviously, the officer said was absolutely, disgusting. The further charges that he was taken in for, and obviously the charges that he was sent down for, it's absolutely disgusting. Obviously, right? How? That is so weird. Did he create a hologram of himself? I'm not even trying to make this funny. I genuinely don't understand how that worked. More information, though, for you, ladies and gentlemen. Police have seized 51 devices and 18 that he used at the nursery. There's been so many things, I would imagine there's probably going to be even more that is uncovered, right? Again, this is just a pattern more, right? This goes back to every person that was ever allowed here against the wishes of the British people, whose opinion on immigration changed very quickly, all the way back in the late 50s. Changed extremely quickly. Every single thing from that point onwards, right, has been a disgusting betrayal by the establishment. Every single Prime Minister, every single person in position of authority that could have stopped this never did. It's on their head. Every single case that comes out like this now where it's somebody that never would have been here if they'd done their job, it's on their head. It's on their head. It's absolutely disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. So you can only hope that this guy gets the absolute, worst punishment possible, right? Because truly, there's no words. You can go on and on and on about how heinous, how disgusting it is. But it matters that the justice system does its job. So please don't let Judge Lloyd-Clarke preside over this case, whatever the fuck you do. And speaking of, in this instance, betrayals and all manner of other things, right? This Labour government is doing everything possible, as successive generations of governments have done, to destroy this country, but they're also getting caught up in serious, massive contradictions as they do so. So I spoke about with James Harvey a good while ago when I had one podcast this year, very early on this year, about Confucius Institutes because I was talking about the wokeness in universities and stuff like that. Me and James were in university around the same time, literally a campus across from each other. Didn't even realise. And he was going through all of this political stuff at the time, being called a fascist and all of these things. I absolutely had no idea. I absolutely had no idea any of this stuff was going on. Very, very insulated at that time. But we spoke about Confucius Institutes. And the Confucius Institute is a direct link from a Chinese university to a British one. And that Swansea was actually linked with Wuhan. Yeah. Swansea was actually linked with Wuhan, at least from what James told me. And obviously Chinese influence, any kind of foreign influence, very, very bad thing, right? Especially when it's having influence on our politics and our civilization, our country, right? Very fabrics of our society. Keir Starmer has just come out in what we would think would be this true moment of strength, seemingly. That China, he's warning us, is a serious threat to the United Kingdom, a serious national threat to the United Kingdom. And he said that the absence of engagement is staggering, saying the UK hasn't been standing up like its allies for its interests. No, you're destroying our farming. You're destroying our society with mass migration. You're pricing British people out of jobs for the foreign slave labour. No, you're not acting in the best interests of Britain and the British people. You're outright eradicating them. But this is what he had to say. But we're going to see here how Stalinist Starmer is talking out of both sides of his mouth. Because in one breath, he'll say China poses massive security threats. In the next, he'll then give them a massive mega embassy in London, saying that it could bring security advantages. But here's that clip for you, ladies and gentlemen.
That poses real national security threats to the United Kingdom. With all that in mind, the absence of engagement is just staggering. A dereliction of duty, because it means that, unlike our allies, we have not been standing up for our interests. Well, no more. It's time for a serious approach, to reject the simplistic binary choice, neither golden age nor ice age, and recognise the plain fact that you can work and trade with a country while still protecting yourself.
Yeah, apparently we do that by giving them all of our industry and importing these, bombastic wind turbines from them, whilst they actively profit off of slave labour in their own right, the sweatshops and so on. So again, people forget, they lambast us for slavery and reparations all the time, that slavery still goes on today. In fact, even more so than today. More slaves today than ever in history. And it's not Britain that has them. It's not America that has them. It's not Europe that has them, right? Aside from isolated incidents where, again, in cases like the gangs, that is a form of slavery, right? That is a form of slavery or forced imprisonment, right? We saw that with the case up in Rhyl, right? The foreign gang that was operating up in Rhyl. They say here that China is a threat and the absence of engagement is staggering and the UK isn't acting in its best interests. Tell me why then, A, it's punishing our farmers with inheritance tax raids out the wazoo that are designed to price them off the land so they can pave it over for more migrant accommodation, beholden to the globalist leaders like Larry Fink. And as well then, they're planning on banning wood burners to bring Britain on par with the EU. But first off, Chinese mega embassy could bring security advantages, says number 10. No, this wasn't 4 years ago. This wasn't even 1 year ago. This was 2nd of December this year. This was yesterday. This was yesterday. Keir Starmer also said that yesterday. Literally speaking, at least according to the BBC, out of both sides of his mouth on the same day. So plans for a Chinese mega embassy in London could bring security advantages, so the Prime Minister's official spokesperson has said, despite security fears from opponents. So is China good or bad? Is giving China more good or bad? Is Britain acting in its own interest by building this new Chinese mega embassy? No, of course it's not. So you're seeing here how he's speaking out of both sides of his mouth, and ultimately, who's the one that's going to suffer the most? Yep, just the regular Brit. Just the regular British person. They're the ones who are always going to be footing the bill, and they're always going to be the ones suffering the social and economic consequences of things like this. I'd be very, very pissed if I was a, net-heavy taxpayer in London. Put it that way. So, this is the actual article in question, ladies and gentlemen. Bring it up on screen for you now, along with the blueprint of the mega embassy in and of itself. Pardon me. So you're seeing here, this is the plan, right here. This is the plan. Massive new mega embassy in London. Number 10 highlighted the security advantages of consolidating 7 Chinese sites currently dotted around the capital as a date for a decision on whether to grant planning permission was pushed back for a 3rd time into the new year. Well, that's good at least. Some believe China's mega embassy, if it gets the go-ahead, would be a huge hub in the heart of London for espionage. You don't say. You don't f***ing say. They're already in our universities. They're already in all manner of other public sector and education. They're already sending, you're going to take into account any foreign exchange students over here. They're going to be coming over here with permission and marching orders from the Communist Party of China. There's no way that they're not. And on top of all that, on top of the fact that we decided to outsource all of our manufacturing and price our own people out of jobs, get rid of all our industry, right, to send it off to places like India and China and re-import it back, in order to save money at the top because they use outright slave labour. We're then being like, oh, okay, we'll just build you a massive new mega embassy. And of course it's going to be a hub for espionage. Why wouldn't it? Why wouldn't it? So if you're Keir Starmer, you can't talk about Britain not acting in its best interest and then bend over backwards for the Chinese Communist Party. But obviously you want us to emulate China. You want us to be exactly like China. You want the same totalitarian surveillance state. You want the same social credit controls. You want all the digital ID. You want all of the horrific crime that we're seeing in the UK, because that gives you the impetus to bring this all in, because it gives you the ability to say it's for our safety. And it's for our good. And therefore you can say it's in Britain's interest. Nothing that's been done the last 80 years has been in Britain's interest. Britain has been on a slow, depressing decline. It's not like we're at one point, it's all of a sudden just glorious empire and then wiped off the map. It's been embarrassing with how slow and drawn out the death of Britain has been. The upside is it still gives us time to reverse it. It still gives us time to do something about it. And that's why all of these people need to have their day in court. That's why all of these people that have inflicted crimes against humanity against the British people need to have their day in court. Absolutely do. The government is expected to give the green light to the embassy on January 20th next year. And I'm assuming it's not going to be the Chinese that are funding this. It's going to be what? The London taxpayer. I'm assuming. Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood and Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper said their concerns have been resolved as China had agreed it would move all its accredited diplomats in London to a single site were it to be approved. Oh, good. As long as they're all here in one site. I don't see how that's going to make much of. I don't see how that's going to make much of a difference. What are the other sites then going to be used for? Well, are they going to be used for more HMOs and asylum accommodation? Is that what they're going to be used for? But apparently, it's to bring security advantages to the UK. I don't buy it. I don't buy it when not only, again, out of one side of their mouth, they're saying how big of a threat China is, but then on the other side of their mouth, they're giving then a massive, super embassy to them. They're also then pushing through some of the most draconian legislation to our farmers that's ever been seen. It's going to price them off of their land. It's going to result in more state ownership of that land, which they can do whatever they want. More control over our food supply and what goes in it. And also control of the land, which they can do whatever the hell they want, which they'll pave over all of our lovely British countryside and seemingly house it with more Somalians, which nobody asked for. Labour's inheritance tax rate on farmers, this is from The Express, has just been backed by the Commons tonight. MPs voted 327 to 182 of majority of 145 in support of the government's plans to impose inheritance tax on farms worth over 1 million, despite an ongoing backlash from farmers. I don't see what farmers are going to do at this point, other than they're just going to have to go through the route of doing the mega protests like they did in Canada. I don't see how they're going to get around this, but they can't stand for this. They can't stand for this. You gotta think about it. Why does the government want so much tight control over the nation's food supply, ladies and gentlemen? Because they have tight control over your nutrition. They have tight control over your ability to revolt. I've said this before. Either they want to make you so fat and degenerate, so fat and unable to revolt that you can barely move, that you can't pick up a gun and go fight, or they want to make you like North Korea, where you're so emaciated, right? Outside of Pyongyang, you're so emaciated, you're so malnourished, right, that you physically could not do it even if you wanted to. The middle ground is that ground of revolution where people are healthy, where people are educated, right? That is the ability to revolt. And that's what they want to move everybody out, either to one extreme or the other. So they want to normalize the fat acceptance movement. It's why Tess Holiday and all the others are placed on a massive pedestal, right? You see how quickly that movement evaporated the minute Ozempic came on the scene for a lot of people. A lot of people are saying they were living their best lives with being women that were, bordering on the morbidly obese. The minute the Ozempic or the minute the Mounjaro shots came out, the next thing you know, they're, again, about 7 sizes down or whatever. Shows you how quickly and paper thin that lasted. Not to mention the people who those movements were genuinely set up for, the body positivity movements that were genuinely set up for, veterans that had lost limbs in a war zone, burn victims, people with breast cancer who had their breasts cut off, right? People who are going through chemotherapy and lost hair. All of these other things where people had made sacrifices, or people had had things done to them that wasn't their choice, that they were set up for. Those movements were set up for so that they could not feel stigmatized. And then, like any good deed that doesn't go unpunished, it was taken over by these activists and co-opted to mean things that it never, ever was supposed to mean. Lizzo, Tess Holiday, all of these other people come over and co-opted movements. And you're seeing the same thing with the trans movement. Right? You're seeing the same thing with trans movement. There's some of the biggest people against the trans movement the way it is nowadays, right? Some people even call them transformers, are hermaphrodites themselves. Because they see it as people co-opting their genuine condition, which they never asked for, right? But they've been forced to live with anyway. And these movements that would, again, be set up so that they weren't stigmatized for something that wasn't their fault. People that had nothing going, or they were indoctrinated into the social engineering and all of these things, that had nothing going for them, that saw a way to profit from it because of victimhood currency, that came over, co-opted this movement, made it seem something that it wasn't, and threw those people that it was set up for to the curb. So there's nothing empathetic about these movements, and we should not, quote-unquote, be kind about them. You be kind or help or hope that the people that have been caught up in these movements would actually get the help and support they need. Somebody struggling with, quote-unquote, gender identity, that you would hope that they get the help that they need before they decide to emaciate and before they decide to mutilate themselves. You'd hope that you would be able to love them enough to tell them the truth so that they don't go down that road. You don't pander to the movement. Don't pander to the movement. And the funny thing is, a lot of the friggin' feminists that enabled the trans movement, because it's the logical endpoint of their movement, are now getting cannibalized by it as well. There's kind of poetic justice in there. But again, that was a massive tangent. But you can read this down below, ladies and gentlemen, and the references down below. Find the Express article. It lists every single MP that voted in favour, against, or abstained from it. And I'm very sad to report that my MP didn't vote in favour of it. In the Welsh Valleys area. Very, very disappointing indeed. But not surprising, because he voted, many others, for the termination of babies up until birth anyway. So can't say I'm surprised by the evil that's on display. So apologies about that, guys. Not sure where I left off because I had a visitor. So just be finishing up now. I was going to read every MP's name out, name and shame them, but considering we're already over an hour, I'll leave that and I'll leave you guys to read them down below. Yeah, MPs all up and down the country obviously voted against it. It's, you know, some of the most dystopian and worrying legislation that's been pushed through. It's complete land grab, complete, you know, death tax. Death tax. You pay tax, you get taxed in life, you get taxed endlessly in life, and then you get taxed in death. It's absolutely horrendous. There's absolutely no justification for it. But yeah, you go find a whole list down below. Let me know if your MP voted in favour of it. Disgusting, you know, treasonous scumbags that they are. And yeah, like I said, I don't think anything short of like a mega protest is gonna, or, you know, however we force true legislation change is gonna actually have any positive effect. And obviously, have a look at the people that abstained as well. Abstained is essentially all of the same, you know, it's essentially the same, just, you know, attempted maybe to look a little bit different, you know, be like, oh, I'm taking the high road or that, oh, I don't know which way to go. It's essentially a vote for no, even the people that abstained. And finally, a little note on the mindset of some people, which I thought was more humorous than anything else. Depressing in its humorousness. This is a video from Albania, and it highlights the woke liberal female mindset. Now, I'm a dog lover. I love my dogs. I love any dog that I've had. Past ones that have died. My lovely little fur ball down there. My black Labrador by the name of Bailey, whom if you were in the stream, I talked over Steve Lowe's conversation. By the way, there's another stream coming up on the weekend. We're going to be going over a pivotal debate, which would be really useful if you want to understand what like ethno-nationalism versus civic nationalism really is, and the shortfalls with many of the positions and stuff like that. Really, really good debate from a little while ago we're going to be reviewing. And I'm a kind of person that watches this and silently goes, please no, please stop doing this, doggo, so that you don't get hurt, because I understand what would need to happen if, you know, it came down to the survival of the dogs and the survival of this one guy. So there's an old man, in Albania that's getting attacked by a pack of dogs. He's getting attacked by a pack of dogs. And there's a liberal woman who allegedly is a tourist, which makes this even worse. Whilst he's trying to bat away these dogs with his walking stick, right? He's trying to bat away these dogs with his walking stick, these stray dogs that are trying to attack him. I'm not sure what happened before this, why they were attacking him in the first place, I don't know. She then tries to grab the stick and stop him from defending himself. Not only putting him in more danger, but putting herself in danger as well. She didn't even need to get involved. This is the worst thing you could have done. The next worst thing would have been to walk by and not try to do anything. The best thing anybody could have done is obviously try to help this old man. Try and intimidate the dogs into running off or whatever. Or pull the dogs away. You know, actually put yourself in the firing line, but for a good reason, for a moral reason, because there's an old man getting mauled by dogs. Stray dogs seem to have no owner or whatever. God knows where they come from. God knows what diseases they have. It's the stuff you do need to think about. Rabies and all the rest of it. And this is an old guy. If he gets something like that, he's f***ed. He's absolute f***ed. But no. The liberal saviour complex, particularly with the women, it seems in this instance, just when, no, you can't, how dare you harm these lovely little creatures? Who cares? Who cares if they harm you? Obviously, some kind of a disgusting white privileged male oppressor. Anyway, obviously, but this is peak mind virus, People like this, they need to have some kind, I don't know, they need to have some kind of freedom taken away from them. These people are your voters. These people have say on political policy and on the trajectory of everyone's lives. And they do this. And they do this. So there's no sound of this video. I kept it on mute. But video coming on screen now. So he's batting the dogs away. He's trying to bat the dogs away. I think I might have cropped this video a little bit terribly. But you see here now, the woman comes in and she's trying to grab the old man's stick and trying to push him over, trying to stop him from defending himself. And then this other guy comes in. I don't know what his business was in coming in. Trying to what? Shield the old guy? Trying to stop him from defending himself from marauding feral beasts in this instance. And I say that as a person that loves dogs. Sad reality is, in this instance, is that if it came down to it, you know the way that this would have to go. And that she would lambast him as a evil oppressor or whatever. She literally took away his one means to keep the dogs away from him, to keep some distance so he didn't get bitten and potentially get some kind of very deadly infectious disease. Don't be like this woman, folks. Best thing she could have done in this instance was to just keep walking. Best thing she could have done in this instance was just keep walking. This puts on full display the complete inversion of priorities that we have in Western society today. It's undeniable. It's undeniable at this point. We need to seriously do something about it. Because this suicidal mindset, not to mention all of the other political forces we have against us, is taking us off the face of the planet and is destroying the civilizations that our ancestors spent generations building. We have no right to throw it away. We have absolutely no right to throw it away. And that'll do it for today. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, one thing I was going to say was I kind of feel I'm getting throttled a little bit at the moment, by the algorithm. So please make sure that you have notifications turned on and make sure you share these videos as well if you find them useful. And obviously we've seen that creators in this kind of space, if you don't have the correct politics and so on, they don't tend to last very long, or the sword of Damocles can fall at any point. So obviously to make sure you never miss an upload, make sure you've got notifications turned on. And then, obviously, make sure you tune in, because I know some of you don't get the videos up in the feed very often. So make sure you've got those notifications turned on so you know that you never miss an upload and stuff like that, if you get value out of this channel. But thank you so much for watching, listening, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you find it useful. Have a good morning, afternoon, evening, good night, wherever you are. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you for watching. Hwyl fawr to see you next time. And you take very good care of yourselves now. Godspeed.